061, 061, 522.
For the first time in history, we are living with a growing elderly population. In the 20th century, medical breakthroughs extended the average human lifespan from 49 to 76 years of age. Many believe that this pales in comparison to what we'll see in the next 100 years.
I don't think it's realistic to talk about life expectancies of people that are born today, because even if they were only to live to 2080, which is life expectancy today, by 2080, the prospects for life extension are so wondrous that they could live for centuries.
What we look at in our lab is the analog of humans in their 200s playing really great tennis.
If we manage to interfere with the genetic blueprints, the maximum lifespan is up for grabs.
Immortality. It's a quest that's been around since the beginning of history, and one that we continue to be obsessed with today. There's a growing desire in our world to create a longer, healthier life for ourselves, slowing down, stopping, or perhaps even reversing the hands of time. Many want the elixir of eternal life. This is nothing new. We have all heard about the waters of the fountain of youth, a vampire's blood that makes you immortally undead, water from the Holy Grail. What is new is that now, today, scientists are closer than ever before to understanding human aging, perhaps even reversing it. And there's a world eagerly awaiting these discoveries.
And take a deep breath through your mouth. Kevin, you're 43 years old from Edmonton, and your chief complaint is aging.
Yeah, that's my chief complaint.
Okay,
yeah.
I can understand that.
When I was like around 4 or 5 years old, we had a family pet. He was a dog, and he died, and I was crushed, of course. When my mother explained to me, I immediately put two and two together, and I asked her, am I going to get old and die? And she said yes. Well, I think an awful lot of people might go through the same experience, and they just kind of accept it and move on, but it's never ever sat right with me.
At the age of 36, Kevin Parrott was given the news that he had a malignant tumor. Fortunately, it was a very treatable form of thyroid cancer, but it was a wake-up call. For the second time in his life, Kevin resolved that he was not going to sit quietly and accept death as inevitable. Today, Kevin has come to Dr. Terry Grossman's longevity clinic in Denver to take the first steps towards slowing down his aging process.
Kevin, we're going to do an exercise treadmill on you today.
Sure.
We'll start quite slowly.
Yeah.
We have two purposes. First, we want to see that it's safe for you to continue exercising. And secondly...
Until very recently, there was nothing you could do to slow aging. Kevin is one of a growing number of people who actively seek out possible longevity treatments.
I am experiencing osteoarthritis in the knee. I've got degenerative disc disease in my back. My eyes are not as good. I'm going to need glasses, which is something that I've never needed in my entire life. I've still got hair, which is something some of my friends don't have, but it's mostly gray. And getting younger from the inside out is really what I'm most concerned with.
So far, the tracings are looking completely normal, as we expected.
Dr. Grossman's goal is to slow aging and prevent disease. He tailors an aggressive anti-aging program for each patient.
So far, so good?
He believes that immortality is within our grasp. Grossman is one of many who make astonishing claims about not only extending the human lifespan, but slowing down, stopping, and even reversing aging, offering a promise of perpetual youth.
Intervention in aging is going to come from all different directions, and it's going to be more possible than most people think, and it's going to happen sooner than most people think. You don't want to miss out on the future if you can be included in it.
I think it's a pretty straightforward thing now for us to envision, where we could reverse the aging of human cells make these all-powerful stem cells from one of our cells in our body and make a new immune system, the immune system we were born with.
Aging is a many-headed monster. It begins in our early 20s and gains speed with every passing decade. Our internal organs, the heart, lungs, and kidney begin to fail. By the time a man reaches his 70s, his heart has lost 25% of its pumping power. Our muscle tissue becomes weak. Our bones become more fragile. After 40, we start to shrink, losing 1 centimeter every decade. Our immune system is increasingly compromised, and our skin takes 4 times longer to heal. Just as we struggle to maintain an old house, we hope that modern medicine will patch and repair our bodies.
We can keep a house going indefinitely. If anything goes wrong, you just fix it. Why can't we do that with our bodies? Well, today we can't fully do that with our bodies for one reason. We know how a house works. We know everything that can go wrong with it, and we know how to fix anything that goes wrong. We don't yet today have all that knowledge with our bodies. That's what's going to change.
Ray Kurzweil knows more than most people about radical life extension. He has been awarded the American Medal of Technology, he has received honors from 3 U.S. presidents, and is in the National Inventors Hall of Fame. He has now turned his attention to life extension technologies.
We're talking about remaining young. I mean, pick your age that you'd like to be, 25, 35. We're going to be able to arrest and reverse aging, and that's pretty revolutionary.
But that's clearly the future. Where are we today? Dr. Cynthia Kenyon is a molecular biologist who studies nematodes, tiny, short-lived roundworms. Work being done in her lab has led to results that shatter our traditional notions of aging.
People used to think that aging was just a passive process where you just kind of randomly fall apart, like an old car, with time. And in that sense, the whole problem of aging seemed to be solved in the sense that there wasn't really anything complicated going on. It's just that you wear out. But I guess about 15 years ago, we really started to question that idea. And when you look around in nature, there are all these interesting phenomena that make you wonder whether there might not be some regulation for aging. So for example, different animals have really different lifespans. There are fish and turtles that live to be 200, and those animals have muscles and nerve cells and intestinal cells that are very similar to ours, and yet ours die after 70, 80 years, but those don't, they live. When you just think about all of that, it sort of makes you wonder whether there isn't some kind of control over the aging process.
There are many theories about how we age, but ultimately the key lies in our genes and the biological codes that go into our makeup. Evolution explains why we age. Natural selection wants us to reproduce as soon as possible, when we're young. As we get older, natural selection loses interest, and our health fades away. As an evolutionary biologist, I've spent 3 decades extending the lifespan of fruit flies. They have very short lives, so we can do aging experiments quickly. In the 1970s, I showed that we could deliberately postpone aging. In keeping with the basic idea that the thing that controls aging fundamentally is a pattern of natural selection, specifically natural selection becoming weaker with age. What I have done in order to postpone aging is to trick natural selection into caring about survival later and later in life. And I do this very simply by delaying the first chance that females get to reproduce to later and later ages. I did this by a very simple method, which is to delay the first time at which members of my population were allowed to reproduce. It was only when they were older that the eggs that the females laid were used to start the next generation. And that basic procedure tricks natural selection into caring about the health and survival of organisms until later in life. So what we now have in one of our experiments, for example, which has been going on for more than a quarter century, we've produced a fruit fly that lives about 3 times longer on average than the normal fruit flies. 3 times longer. My work provoked the scientific community. For the first time, research had shown that lifespan could be altered. This sparked a stampede into the study of longevity. Kevin Parrott decided to seek out some leading scientists, hoping to crack the secrets of aging. He began with Cynthia Kenyon and her work with nematode worms.
It hasn't been very long. It hasn't been very long at all that scientists are accepting the fact that aging isn't this immutable, inevitable deterioration. And you were really the person to get it. And back in the early 90s, when you showed that aging wasn't immutable or inflexible, what was it like to be one of the pioneers? Actually, it's hard to say pioneers after only 10 years.
It was amazing because these worms should be dead, but they weren't. They were young. That's amazing.
Totally.
Definitely. Still amazing. Every time I see them, my little hairs stand up.
That's cool.
Yeah. They're beautiful. They are. They look young. They're active, they're moving around. They're trim. They're not lethargic. They have good muscle tone. Really, an old worm looks old. Even if you've never seen a worm, if you see a worm that's old, you can tell that it's old. It's pretty amazing. It's true with most animals. If you see an old animal, you can tell it's an old animal, even if you don't even know what kind of animal it is. Most people would think, you know, right off the bat, why worms? You know, come on, if you want to understand aging, why don't you study people? Because we don't care about worms, we care about people. And I mean, I think worms, I do care about worms, but it is true that I also want to know about people. The fundamental processes of life take place in exactly the same way in these little worms as they do in people. For example, if you look at a muscle cell in a worm, it looks just the same as a human muscle cell. It has the same proteins, it generates force in the same way. Not only that, the instructions in the DNA that tell a cell to become a muscle cell are the same in the worm and the human. It's mind-boggling, actually, how similar they are. They're much more similar than they are different. So it turns out that if you study anything in C. elegans, these little worms, at the molecular level, there's a very good chance that whatever you learn in these little worms will be applicable to people.
Kenyon's theory was that if genes control the aging process, altering the genetic makeup of the worm might slow down the rate of aging.
So what we did is we just randomly changed genes looking for, as a consequence of a genetic change, an extension of lifespan. And so we found that changing a gene called DAF2 could double the worm's lifespan. So that's kind of a grim reaper gene because the normal function of that gene is to speed up aging. And that's also very interesting. Why would you even think that you even have a gene like that inside of you to speed up your aging? It's not something people would have predicted, but there it is. It's there. The animal not only lived twice as long, but got old twice as slowly. So in other words, looking at these animals would be like looking at someone who's 90 and thinking that you were looking at a 45-year-old. In other words, I'm 90. That's what I'm saying. That's what it was like. Actually, we can get our worms to live 6 times as long as normal if we make 2 changes in the same genes. That's like 500-year-old people in human terms. It's amazing. So these kinds of remarkable lifespan extensions that you see in animals, I think, are beginning to serve as role models for us.
Some think that if we live long enough, science might beat death. If our own aging process can be slowed, perhaps we can live long enough to benefit from the next wave of research.
Make a fist for me.
Alrighty.
You are fasting, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, just like I was told.
Good.
While we all age, it is clear that we age at different rates. At Dr. Grossman's longevity clinic, Kevin undergoes a battery of tests to see what kind of shape his body is in. What is his true biological age, or inner age, as compared to his chronological age?
The biological age is a computerized compilation of 12 factors that are associated with aging. For instance, we know that high-frequency hearing deteriorates with age. So we measure someone's high-frequency hearing ability and assess that a numerical value, like you have the hearing of a 20-year-old or a 40-year-old or a 60-year-old, no matter what your chronological age is.
Dr. Grossman also tests such age-determining factors as lung capacity, vision, memory, and reaction time.
We can generate what a person's biological age is. Then we compare that to their chronological age, have people follow a program of preventive health, and then after a period of a year or two, recheck their biological age with the goal of having it go down, because that is what we're looking to do in anti-aging medicine, is to reduce our biological age.
Dr. Grossman has a plan to live long enough to live forever. His colleague and patient, Ray Kurzweil, believes that if we take full advantage of therapies available today, we can avoid disease, surviving until more radical life-extending technologies are found.
It involves finding out about yourself and developing an optimal program and aggressively pursuing today's knowledge to slow down aging processes. If I go back 23 years ago, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I had very high cholesterol, it was 280, but I've had no indication of diabetes for 20 years. My cholesterol's been 130 for a long time. I measure 50 different blood levels, and so I'm kind of like an engineer. I've got this whole instrument panel, and I'm constantly adjusting my program to keep all these different measures of my health and different aspects of my body fine-tuned at optimal levels. The most dramatic part of it is a very aggressive supplement program. I take 250 supplements a day, and I have a different program for each aspect of health, for brain health and for eye health and for liver health. And for each one, there's a whole bunch of different ideas, because we are what we eat in many ways.
Scientists at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario, are testing the value of nutritional supplements on mice. Dr. Jen Lemon is the first Canadian to compete for the Methuselah Mouse Prize, a prize set up to encourage scientists in the field of aging to work with mammals. $1 million will be given to the scientist who first doubles the lifespan of a mouse.
So this mouse was born 18 months ago, and we would expect that if this animal hadn't been on the supplement, that they would have died about 6 months ago. And
working with mice who have had genetic alterations that cause them to age more rapidly, Dr. Lemon has increased the lifespan of these mice by 30%. With some living substantially longer. Some of her mice are fed a regular diet, and others are given a supplement. The supplement is made with 31 over-the-counter vitamins and minerals. This combination improves brain function and reduces such age-related symptoms as cataracts, diabetes, and arthritis. The results have been astounding. The mice who don't eat the supplement are lethargic. They suffer from joint inflammation, muscle loss, and poor coat quality. This mouse is almost twice as old and gets the supplement. He appears younger in every way.
We've tested the cognition in these animals up to 16 months, and they are just as intelligent or more intelligent than a 3-month-old mouse, which is where the untreated animals are at their prime. So when we're seeing an animal that's hitting 2 years and is still behaving as though they're 3 months old, that kind of thing is the thing that's the really profound change that we see.
The mice taking the supplement seem to be supercharged for survival. They not only live longer, but are far healthier during their prolonged lives.
With this lifespan extension, this would be equivalent to a 110 to 120-year-old person. And I mean, the fact that we've got this kind of vitality in an animal of this age is quite remarkable.
While researchers like Professor Lemon look to dietary supplements for longevity, others see compounds found in red wine as a possible elixir. One of these, resveratrol, has recently been shown to extend the lifespan of mice by 30%.
I'm mostly getting Pinot Noirs because they have the highest resveratrol content. We don't know for sure that it's resveratrol that is responsible for the apparent effects of red wine on slowing aging. But in case it is, may as well go with the Pinot, and it tastes very good. Well, I love it raw, and then you get a lot of volume on the plate. Like my boyfriend's morning salad that he eats for breakfast is about that big. And
April Smith is one of an increasing number of individuals practicing caloric restriction, or CR. Kevin Parrott is hoping that this might be a path to greater longevity. It has been proven that if you cut a mouse's caloric intake by 30%, it will live at least 30% longer than its normal 2-year lifespan. But will it extend life in humans?
one thing we learned from almost all of the rodent data is that you need to phase in slowly. You really don't want to lose weight fast. That's very counterproductive, and nobody knows exactly why. We just know that that the rats who lost weight, oh, these are gorgeous.
Yeah.
Little cauliflowers. That the rats who lost weight fast didn't have the life extension benefits, and that would kind of defeat the purpose, wouldn't it?
April follows a diet whose radical premise is that the less you eat, the longer you'll live.
You know, I want 50 to be the new 30 for me. And I know that the way I look and feel at 32 is better than how I looked at and felt at 22. I think that the minimum recommended calories for women is like 1,500 to 2,000. I know that before I was doing calorie restriction, I was eating probably more than that. I am very small. I'm under 5'2". I'm not particularly athletic. And right now I eat an average of 1,300 to 1,400 calories a day. I'm gradually taking that down.
Why be hungry all the time? Like,
well,
aren't you hungry all the time?
That's a common mistake. Nobody I know who does CR is hungry anywhere near all the time. This is too many leaks.
Like, I'm hungry all the time, and I'm not even on CR.
You were probably malnourished.
Yeah, okay.
You were probably malnourished, because what ends up happening is most people in North America are actually not getting anywhere near the nutrition that they need. My partner, who I cook for, is very serious about keeping his calories consistent and his macronutrients exact. So I use a software program. For me, it's like playing a video game. I can design a 639 calorie dinner for Michael, my partner, in about 10 minutes that is 30% protein, 30% fat, 40% carbs, contains 3 ounces of Pinot Noir, because he drinks 3 ounces of Pinot Noir every night. It's very cute. And is delicious. And I can do that in 10 minutes on the computer, or less. I can really do that in 5, and then I can cook the thing in 15, have dinner on the table in 20.
You're going to have to show me some of these tips and tricks, because
or we could just get you a CR girlfriend who could do the cooking for you.
That would be the most convenient.
Yeah,
I could definitely do that.
That's also
too.
good. We could run a little dating service. I do hope and feel optimistic about much later in my lifetime being able to take advantage of real age-reversing biotechnology. Calorie restriction, we hope, will slow aging somewhat, and I know it makes me feel better right now.
At best, caloric restriction is just a stopgap that will buy a few extra years. Fortunately, we are in the midst of a biotechnology revolution that will add decades to our lives. One day soon, we will replace our damaged organs. Our bodies will become like cars. Short of drastic accidents, they will be fixed by visiting a high-end body shop and bolting on replacement parts. We will become repairable. Kevin Parrott visits scientist Greg Fahey at 21st Century Medicine in Southern California. Fahey recently achieved an important breakthrough when he froze a rabbit kidney, warmed it up again, and successfully transplanted the kidney back into a living rabbit. His objective is to develop a procedure for storing human organs indefinitely.
So it might be feasible in the future then to see like a bank of organs, like a tissue bank of organs for me when I might happen to need one. I might be able to actually go get one.
Yes. Imagine that this was a human kidney and you needed one. You don't find these every day, so it would be nice to call your doctor and say, I want one of these, but I want it next Thursday at 5 p.m. And he says, fine, you know, you check into the hotel down the street and everything will be taken care of. Today, if you need a kidney, you're going to be waiting for 2 or 3 years to get it. It's going to be very poorly matched to you immunologically, and you're going to reject that kidney or die of the anti-rejection medications. We think that we can improve all of that. People are familiar with the medical applications in cryobiology outside the field of aging. Most of us have heard of sperm banks, frozen blood banks, that sort of thing. What we're talking about is applications that are more directly related to aging. If you can't preserve these things, you can't move them from the laboratory to the bedside, and so the patient can't receive them and get the benefits of them.
Scissors.
One of the problems with conventional freezing methods is that ice crystals form and then irreversibly damage organs.
In our approach, we're preventing ice from forming no matter how cold you go in temperature. In principle, we could go all the way to absolute zero and we would never form an ice crystal. And what happens instead is that the system becomes a solid liquid, in a sense, that the liquid becomes slower and slower as you go to lower and lower temperatures until eventually it stops moving altogether. And at that point, it is called a glass. It's no longer called a liquid. And that process is called vitrification or glass formation. And the beauty of that approach is that there's nothing about the arrest of molecular motions that's harmful for living systems.
This is how a healthy rabbit kidney should look. After cryopreserving the kidney, Dr. Fahey wants it to have the same appearance. Today, he plans to test a new solution that he hopes will reduce the amount of ice formation when the kidney is rewarmed.
During cooling, it's possible for a kidney to go 100 degrees below its normal freezing point without forming any ice crystals. When you warm the kidney back up again, very counterintuitively, the kidney can then freeze, and that's the problem we're trying to solve in this experiment.
Fahey has cryopreserved 3 rabbit kidneys using different preservatives. The first 2 kidneys were vitrified with earlier formulas. It is the 3rd kidney that he hopes will show some positive results today. He will carefully observe each kidney as it thaws in order to monitor any damaging ice formation. Previously, this was their most successful cryopreservation, but it wasn't perfect.
You can see that the kidney is unfrozen, except in the center of the kidney, you have a butterfly-shaped pattern of clear ice formation in the most sensitive part of the kidney, the very inner medulla. This is a kidney that was vitrified by a new technique that we're working on in our lab. And as you can see, it looks exactly like the kidney we showed you earlier today looked before it was cooled to cryogenic temperatures, which is the whole point of the experiment, is to be able to put it back into a recipient without any ice damage whatsoever. Of course, the ultimate expression of what we're trying to do lies in the future of artificially created replacement parts, such as artificially generated tissues and organs created through stem cell research of various kinds, or just out-and-out construction of these organs on scaffolds in tissue engineering laboratories. This is how we get to the point of unlimited supplies of tissues and organs for all.
The early steps of this work are underway as breakthroughs in regenerative medicine move from the lab to the operating room. Pamela Finney is a 23-year-old woman who has amyloblastoma, a rare and aggressive tumor that has grown in her jaw tissue. She has traveled from Golden, British Columbia to Toronto's Mount Sinai Hospital, where Dr. Cameron Clokey has pioneered an amazing technique to regrow jawbone.
Even myself, when we actually brought it to our first patient and actually saw the bone regenerate, really nobody could believe that it was actually happening. But we've now, the patient today will be our 11th patient, and so far in the series of patients, we've had a very good success with this approach, and it is almost magical the way it heals. What we're going to be doing is using this protein that will stimulate our body's own cells to completely regenerate the jawbone. Here's an image of the patient that we're going to treat today. If you notice right here, there's a dark area on the x-ray, right here. This reflects the area where the tumor is in the jaw. Once we have this bone removed with the tumor in it, we're actually going to reconstruct it. And then over time, the muscles that are around this bioimplant will provide the stem cells, which will then allow the bone to completely regenerate throughout the area that was previously occupied by the tumor.
Clokey's colleague, Dr. George Sandor, will remove the area of jawbone that contains the tumor. Traditional jaw reconstruction takes bone, fat, and muscle from the hip area, then uses it to rebuild the jaw. The procedure is long and painful, often requiring 15 to 20 hours in the OR and an extended hospital stay. Today, Pamela is undergoing a 4-hour surgery and will spend just a few nights in the hospital. Within 12 months of the operation, the jawbone will have completely regrown, replacing the 3-inch piece of bone that is being removed. At this point in the surgery, Dr. Clokey prepares the putty that will replace the missing piece of jawbone. Bone morphogenetic protein is added to the putty. It is this protein that coaxes adult stem cells into becoming bone tissue, specifically the stem cells from Pamela's jaw muscle.
So you can see it's kind of like sand, and literally what we do is we pour it in a little bit at a time and just sort of knead it together. Dr. Sandor is going to be the last little bit. What we have in the putty is a protein, and this protein is in all of our bodies. And what this protein does when we're an embryo is it essentially stimulates cells that are stem cells within our body to form bone-forming cells. So essentially what we're doing with this putty is we're taking that same protein now in an adult, and we are harnessing the endogenous stem cells that exist within our body and turning them into bone-forming cells. Maybe I'll come from the top here. And you can see here now that we're just shaping it so that it's pretty much like the jawbone itself. If we can just suction here. You can see in a matter of a few minutes here, we've been able to go in and put this implant in, and then just with this simple instrument, shape it. If you look closely now, it looks pretty much like the patient's old jawbone that was removed.
Here is an X-ray of one of Clokey's previous patients. On the bottom of the X-ray, there is a dark cavity where the jawbone has been removed. 12 months later, a new X-ray was taken, and the jawbone had completely regrown.
What we're talking about here is almost magical, the way the body, through its innate processes, can actually regenerate parts of the tissue. Could you imagine if we could apply, through regenerative medicine, those kinds of technologies to allow for that to occur, regenerating arms, legs, jawbones in this case? It's really quite spectacular.
These kinds of medical breakthroughs will greatly extend the lifespan of patients, continuing a trend in medicine that has prevailed over the past century.
If we go back in the United States to the year 1900, average life expectancy was only 49 for both men and women combined. It was like 51 or 52 for women and 48 or 47 for men. And during the next 100 years, we experienced an increase in average life expectancy to age 75. So we gained more than 25 years. But largely, public health measures were really the secret behind getting rid of infectious disease and getting vaccines for children, like for pertussis or whooping cough or measles or mumps. Because if you manage to save the life of somebody who's young, statistically that matters a lot in the general population. The human lifespan is about 122 years old, because the oldest person that ever lived that has received our validation and is documented, Jeanne Calmette, a French lady who died in 1997, tells us that there is an upper limit to human lifespan. So anyone who makes it to 120 is like extraordinary, shocking kind of Guinness Book of Records longevity.
New research into how we age promises to collapse this immutable barrier. It won't be long before the record books will have to be rewritten. One thing people probably don't understand, perhaps because they don't want to, is that as you age, it's not just that you get worse from 40 to 50 years of age, and then worse again from 50 to 60 years of age. It's that the rate at which you get worse accelerates. That in fact, however kind aging has been to you between the ages of 30 and 40, it will be a lot harder on you between the ages of 40 and 50, and still harder between 50 and 60. And that acceleration of deterioration continues until the early 90s, when it abruptly stops. G52. That doesn't mean you do not get disease. It doesn't mean you become young anymore. It means that you do not continue to get worse and worse and worse with each decade.
067. 067.
Due to rapidly improving health measures, more and more people are reaching this plateau where aging seems to stop. Seniors are the largest growing segment of our society, with women over 100 outnumbering men by 9 to 1. The reason for this disparity is not wholly understood, but many believe that the genes of female centenarians may hold the secrets for a longer, healthier life. According to the United Nations, there were 180,000 centenarians worldwide in the year 2000. It is estimated that by 2050, there will be more than 3 million people living to be 100 years or older. We all fear growing old, losing our health, our independence, but the idea of radical life extension is not appealing. Who would want more years of failing health? Should we be tampering with our bodies, with what it means to be human? As with every new technology, there are problems, just as there is promise. The coming longevity revolution will not only change us physically, but our traditional idea of aging will be transformed.
I think death is a tragedy. It's obviously a tragedy. It's a tragic loss of knowledge, of skill, of talent, of relationships, of love, of bonds. And we've basically rationalized, oh, death, it's really a good thing because we've had no alternative. And so, you know, much of philosophy and religion has been spun to rationalize this tragic event, which has been seen as inevitable, and it's deeply imbued in all our poetry and literature and metaphors, as being a good thing. So suddenly people have to rethink what their lives are about and what their objectives are and their plan, and that's sometimes scary to people.
People don't like things that are sudden. If you said to people, what if we had a drug that would make everybody age just a little more slowly so that instead of going into the nursing home at age 80, you go in at age 85. You know, at age 80, you're still pretty good shape. Most people would say that's fine, you know? So I think if it's gradual, it's good. And the fact is, drugs like this are going to have such a beneficial effect on disease that the culture is going to want it. If you could stay disease-free and younger, why not?
I have absolutely no intention of dying. Of course, there's so much to see and so much to do that I must keep going.
Sally Gappel, known to all as Grandma Sally, is an exception to our concept of old age. She is 107 years old and lived on her own until she was 105. Sally now lives in a senior's residence but has little need for daily care. She has recently come to the attention of Dr. Stephen Coles in his search for individuals who have lived to be 110 or older.
Andrea, remember when you called me on the telephone and you said that your grandmother was a special person, 107, and that I ought to interview her, and I said, well, I'm reluctant to do that because I consider your grandmother a youngster, because we don't really look at people carefully until age 110, what we call supercentenarians. But you were persistent.
Dr. Coles has spent decades studying long-lived individuals in order to find out what's behind their extreme old age. Why do some people live for so many years, and what is the specific cause of their death?
If you don't understand the true cause of death in supercentenarians, you will not be able to identify the genes that are involved in their DNA for longevity.
Dr. Coles, I brought some of my grandmother's documents to show you. And the one that amuses me the most is her driver's license. If you look at her date of birth, it says 99 on there.
Yes.
Which stands for 1899.
I don't think there'd be any confusion about that. Let the record state that we did verify her age, and she is fully validated as being 107.
Right.
So as soon as she gets to be 110, then with her supercentenarian status, we will put her on our official list.
How fantastic.
What we call table
Oh, I can die. No way.
You got to stick around and make it
No way
to the
am I
list.
going to die.
Has anyone else in your family a history of living for a long time? The thing that we have uncovered in our investigation of supercentenarians is the idea that this is a highly heritable or inherited phenomenon. In other words, these people in that family have chosen their parents wisely because They have inherited something in their genes that lets longevity manifest itself to its full potential. What if, by studying their genes, we discover how to make a lot of people in our population become supercentenarians for the first time?
She's interested in everything. She's still running the world. She loves being the inspector general at the polls. She tells people what to do here. She tells me what to do every day.
My daughter said, when I die, I'll go up there to reorganize.
Yes, I think the reason she's still here is God doesn't really want to give up control just yet.
Not just yet.
California, a place obsessed with surfing, sun, and movie stars, is the mecca of eternal youth. Not surprisingly, the state has quickly become a leader in the new longevity industry, partly due to a major state funding initiative in stem cell research. Kevin Parrott has come to San Francisco to find out where the future of this technology is heading.
We can fix cars, but we can't fix people, and regenerative medicine hopefully will be able to do that. And I mean...
He meets up with Michael West, a pioneer in the field of cell therapy.
I'm concerned for my parents, largely. They're becoming senior citizens. They're 65 now, and I'm hoping that something that you're working on might become available for them. What's the most promising therapies for them?
Well, as we say, there's some low-hanging fruits here. There's some products that we think will be entering the clinic in the next 2 to 5 years. So some aspects of this technology are going to be available imminently. Other fruits are higher in the tree. It will take more years, even decades, to develop. You know, we said we don't want a brave new world. I do. I want a world that's brave, that we attack the problems that face all of mankind, and that's new. The way we age today is not good. We've got to do it differently.
I agree completely.
As we get older, our cells become progressively damaged, causing everything from wrinkles to disease. The goal of stem cell therapy is to rejuvenate old tissues. Michael West is working on a method to coax our adult cells into becoming as young and potent as those of a newborn.
We can imagine today, or we can do more than imagine, we could actually begin to do the following project: the reversal of the aging of cells in the laboratory dish, which we now know how to do. And then the translation of those cells, or the transplantation of those cells, into the human body to sort of fix and repair some of the aspects of human aging. Well, most, if not all, of the cells in our body are aging. Most of us age pretty much the same, slight differences from person to person. But for the human species as we live today, in today's world, there's sort of a weak link. And the weakest link in human aging is our vascular system. There's an old saying in gerontology that we're as old as our arteries, meaning if your arteries are old, you're old. Doesn't matter if you have any graying, if your skin looks great. If your arteries are old, you're old. If your arteries are seriously diseased, you're dead. The fortunate thing, it's really a stroke of luck, I think. Not only is it the weakest link, it's the easiest to fix.
Michael West believes we can make our vascular system young again using somatic cell nuclear transfer to clone our own cells. This research will take regenerative medicine to a new level, turning individual adult cells back into embryonic stem cells. These embryonic cells will then be directed to repair our damaged tissues and organs. By using our own cells, we will avoid rejection, as we will have a perfect immunological match. At Toronto's MacEwan Centre for Regenerative Medicine, researchers are using cardiac tissue engineering to replace portions of the heart damaged by heart attacks or defects. They have been able to grow a piece of heart tissue in the lab, tissue made from a patient's own cells. It's a big step towards engineering a human heart.
Unfortunately, the heart doesn't regenerate itself. And so our goal here is to see if we can accomplish that goal
with using the patient's own cells, making them to become heart cells and to begin to function as our normal cells would in the body.
The creation of the patch begins by taking a small piece of heart tissue and breaking it down so that the individual cells are released. Once the pieces of tissue are small enough, the next step is to add an enzyme that further separates the connective tissue, allowing single cells to emerge. The cells are then removed from the solution and put into a growth serum that nourishes them so that they will stay healthy and multiply. Finally, they are put into a centrifuge which spins the serum to collect cells, which will now be ready for the creation of heart tissue. A biomaterial patch has been soaked in growth medium overnight. It is now ready to accept the cells. This material will support the growth of the cells, but will eventually dissolve when placed inside the body so that only the heart tissue remains. The final step is placing the isolated heart cells onto this matrix, where they will grow into a piece of healthy tissue. After the heart cells have been given time to grow, Dr. Lee, the leader of the project, looks to see if they have formed a healthy piece of heart tissue.
After 5 days culture, we can see the heart cells grow into the heart tissue. And from this field, you can see all these clusters are the cells growing together into the tissue. And now you can see this tissue beating regularly. And you can see this tissue contraction like a heartbeat. Boom, 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 boom.
When we first saw the cells beating in the mesh, we didn't think it was possible. We saw that and we said, oh my goodness, what a new change that we could have for the treatment of patients with heart disease. This would be an ideal opportunity to replace parts that have been injured, which didn't grow properly, and to make a new heart for each of the patients from their own cells.
This kind of research will soon change the way that we treat the common diseases of aging and will ultimately have a profound effect on human lifespan. Kevin has waited for several weeks to get his results from Dr. Grossman. He feels confident that he will have a healthy biological age, but after his cancer scare, any medical result can be nerve-wracking.
Wow, I'm testing out at 34 years old and I'm 43, so biologically I'm almost 10 years younger than I really am, which is definitely something that I'm really happy with. Yeah, the data here looks really quite a bit better than I had anticipated. So you never really know what you're going to come up with, some of this stuff. Apparently my insulin resistance isn't that good, which means I probably should lay off of the tarts and some of the sweets that I've sometimes have a weakness for. My cholesterol as well doesn't look like it's in the best range possible.
It's very important that I look after myself now, and these results really do indicate that I do need to make some lifestyle changes that are going to maximize my health and longevity, because I do want to live healthy a long time, so this is important to me.
If Kevin achieves his goal and radically extends his life, what could his future look like?
We may be looking soon at life expectancies and lifespans in the hundreds of years, 200 years, 300 years, and beyond, in which case chronological age will no longer be a relevant term to discuss, because we'll be able to use some of the technology in the future to reverse aging, and chronological age won't be a meaningful concept.
The new paradigm is rational drug design to really turn off aging and disease processes. And that's going to develop not linearly, but exponentially. We literally double the power of these information technologies every year. And biology, health, medicine is now becoming an information technology, which it wasn't up until recently. And 15 years from now, it'll be a very different landscape. We really will be able to turn off the information processes that cause heart attacks, cancer, all these major diseases. That'll take us to the nanotechnology revolution, where we can really redesign our bodies and brains at the cellular and molecular level. For example, have blood cell-sized devices, nanobots that can go inside our bodies and keep us healthy from inside. Nanobots are blood cell-sized robots. They have computers inside them. They have communication devices so they're all communicating with each other. And they go through our bloodstream and augment our immune system, destroy pathogens, cancer cells. Anything that goes wrong, they can detect it. We'd have billions of them in our bloodstream. Kind of a supercharged immune system, but much more intelligent, much more capable of regenerating our health.
In the late 1800s, Jules Verne imagined traveling to the moon. The idea was simple. We'd put people into a very big cannon and blast them into space. It didn't prove to be that easy, but with time, thousands of people, and billions of dollars, we eventually succeeded. We will postpone human aging in this century, but it will be an undertaking on the same scale as a mission to the moon. It won't be quick, and it won't be easy. We are moving into new territory, but whether we like it or not, the longevity revolution is on its way, and it promises to profoundly alter our experience of life and death.
It's just going to get better and better and better as we go forward in the future, and the thought of missing all of that is just, it's just hopeless. I mean, it's terrible. It's almost unimaginable. You don't want to miss out.
I feel like a little kid being told that I may have to go to bed just before the best part of the movie comes on. So I think that there's so much promise for the future at this point in human history, more than probably at any other time in human history. It's a very exciting time we live in, and I'd like to be around to see what comes next.